Howdy, I'm the Chinese Zodiac Killer. In 2022, I was arrested by the FBI Terrorist Task Force, for which was not just a publicity stunt as an author and an activist and a strategy to ultimately get me elected, but it was a social experiment testing the investigative abilities of the FBI and law enforcement from the perspective of a hypothetical psychopath, for which I may or may not be. Recently, a second individual has been arrested for what appears as an intended assassination attempt on Trump. I've seen the same statement since in multiple news sources, that his cell phone data shows that he was camped out in the bushes for 12 hours before an SS officer spotted the muzzle of his gun in the bushes. Giving this statement to the public is a massive security flaw in itself, in my opinion. Many of us have been led to believe that we are being tracked and monitored through our cell phones. I've heard they can even listen through Alexa and watch it through your TVs, for example. It is my belief that the government wants us to think they have more control than they do while they perfect the technology to do so. By stating publicly that his cell phone data showed that he was camped out 12 hours before the president was nearly present, the FBI and SS have betrayed the fact that cell phone data will only reveal the presence of someone after a suspicious person has been identified and not before, and the data is then examined. It also tells any person intent on committing a crime that they can utilize their cell phone as a tool during a crime, and it won't show up until an extensive data search has been done later. This simple statement to the press by what appears to be the FBI betrayed a terrible weakness in security to the entire world. What may have seemed like a simple statement, it educated everyone as to how inefficient tracking people by their cell phone data truly is. Someone should probably get fired. Although personally, because the government is a monster with an extensive history of human rights abuses, including against its own citizens, we should all be grateful that control over our private lives isn't more efficient. Anyway, the fact that the SS didn't have the technological foresight and or capacity to be able to retrieve and review cell phone data in the general area Trump was to be in, to scan it for any red flags, such as a signal coming from the bushes for 12 hours, and instead relied on a human being's eyesight to spot a muzzle barrel protruding from the brush, sounds extremely primitive in procedure. And then to educate the public on this was extremely stupid. I suspect a professional sniper or assassin would have employed better camouflage. For example, this individual had a pink shirt on and would have likely had an increased chance of success, which apparently wouldn't have mattered if they even had their cell phone on them. Lastly, we have to consider that this was intentional disinformation by the government. Perhaps the SS and the FBI want us to think you can have a cell phone on you and not be identified until an extensive search is done on cell phone data. After all, the U.S. government has an extensive history of lying to the public and spreading disinformation. Despite this, I feel it is unlikely, and the case is instead a terrible security error in regard to a press statement. During my own social experiment, when I engineered the destruction of a corrupt politician's career, whose negligence and intentional behavior resulted in the deaths of thousands of people in 2020, I had my cell phone on my person when doing so, and found that despite my certainty that I would be identified by the presence of my cell phone data, I was not. That's another story for another time, and likely the most shocking thing I did in my entire project. But for now, to all of you who are relieved this homicidal thug left office, you're welcome. That being said, from my own experience testing them, I have found their ability to identify people via cell phone data is far less efficient than they would have us believe, as also is indicative by this recent foolish press statement. While I certainly make mistakes of my own, just like everyone else, people likely have no idea how clever I am. I made fools out of the FBI for over 20 months and was only arrested after giving my identity out no less than 5 times over the course of at least 8 months because I was trying to get arrested. The FBI's best man could not crack my ciphers, except one cipher I made so easy that, as I wrote on it, a kid could crack it, and they still could only crack a few words. I single handedly ended the career of a corrupt politician. I tested the security and investigative procedures of high level government officials and their best security agencies. I engineered a publicity stunt that would even get me covered by People magazine, and I was. It was only because the government covered up my true story that it wasn't told. I did this so that I could eventually put myself in a position to gain enough popularity to go viral and get written in as commander in chief at some point down the road with no political funding or backing, but by simply going viral. I don't trust strange rich billionaires on TV. I'm willing to take control and solve the problems of our country and world myself. So remember, kids, you can always write my name in on election day. Jesse Bartlett, the Chinese Zodiac Killer, psychopath extraordinaire. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. Check out my other discussions and stay tuned for more to come. Don't touch that dial. Make my videos and my story go viral. Join us.